tutorial, how to make a t-shirt into a tank. Yay! So this is what seems like is going to be a really simple process, but it's one where we make heaps of errors. Usually just cutting the armpit hole way too low, or chopping the neck out and going, I've made a mistake and I just now have to throw that t-shirt or that tank top in the bin. Yes, that's my experience, but I have made it into an art. I have created a little science. It's actually not that scientific, and it will only take you a few minutes to get the hang of it. But these tips are good tips. So just so you know, my background in sewing has been going since I've been about 8 years old. My dad always knew when I was going out, because I was generally speaking sitting at my sewing machine, sewing something new for myself to wear out that evening. There's no end to my wanting to chop things, rearrange things and redesign things. This skirt that I'm wearing was actually a dress 2 days ago until I hand sewed it. It doesn't matter where it comes from or what it does, it's always about like this little element of personalization, making it my own, making it different to how it came to meet me when it was in wherever it was I bought it from. A lot of my clothes come from second-hand stores as well, so a vast majority of them in fact, and so I find it's a really beautiful way to recycle something from the past and bring it into a present or current form. And you know, there's so many things that I have taken my Edward Scissorhand chops to that I really love. I have a really beautiful pair of dressmaking scissors and kinking shears in storage, which my mum gave me, and these are my handy dandy, like from the $2 shop, dressmaking scissors here. You are going to need a ruler. This one is from the NBN, and we have an ongoing story in my family. You go to the Royal Easter Show, which is an annual event at Easter time in New South Wales, and when we were younger they used to have this Darrelly show bag, and it had these amazing rulers in it, and they were always clear plastic, and you could liquid paper at the back and write all your test cheat notes on there. I never did that. Never. And Dad works at the Easter Show, and so he was hoping to get me a Darrelly ruler. They haven't existed for about 35 years, and managed to come home with this NBN one. Not quite the same, but appreciate the love. And of course, a pen. So, the first thing we're going to do with this t-shirt, when you're picking a t-shirt, it doesn't matter like what the neckline is, but my advice to you would be to leave the neckline intact, unless instead of making it into a tank, you're making it into an off-the-shoulder tee, which is another tutorial entirely. But find a t-shirt where you actually like the neckline, so leave that intact so it maintains some of the integrity of the shape of the shirt. So I'm going to take, there's my front, it says just breathe, there's the back. I'm going to fold it from the back, match the sleeves together so that we're all ironed or lined out, and I'm going to lay that down in front of me and make it as even as possible. Try and get rid of any kind of lumps or bumps in there, and run your fingers up the seam of the armhole there, and you'll pretty much feel whether the seam is in line or not. Now, I already know with this particular t-shirt that I'm going to want to cut this at 9, and I'm just seeing a little bit of a rearrangement here. I'm already going to want to cut this at 9 centimeters, and my advice to you is to go anywhere between the 8 and 10 centimeter mark. So if you see here, if I measure out to there, I'm sitting at, like, because this has already been through the wash a couple of times, at 8 centimeters. What happens is that the edge of the fabric will curl in, because we're not going to hem or seam this. It's just going to hold tight because of the way the fabric has been machine woven. So you want to err on the side of it being a little bit broader in the shoulder. It's kind of like cooking. Just less on the salt and pepper, because you can always add but you can't subtract. So it's the same theory here. We can always you know, subtract a little bit away from it, but once it's cut, once you've given it the chop, it's already had the chop. So it'll be really handy right about now if I actually had a pair of reading glasses on, but I can see the 10, so we're in luck, and I'm going to use the ruler and just make a marking here to say where that will be. And I'm going to use that as my guideline. So when I go to cut into this particular t-shirt, what I want to do is, you can see that we've got roughly about 1.5 inches, 2 inches gap here between where the shoulder seam, so where the sleeve, yeah, shoulder and the seam sleeve is. See, sleeve seam, yes, and where my pen marking is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to track, when I use my scissors, I'm going to track in towards that seam intersection between the side seam and the armhole seam, because the mistake that we make is that we go a little bit lower than what we think it is going to be. So we stay on this trajectory, running it at the same number of centimetres, the same distance from that sleeve, and that's where we get into our little bit of a problem. So my advice here is, little ant, to hop off my t-shirt and go elsewhere, and to stay with this 10 centimetre mark and use that as the starting point, but make your way into the intersection of the armhole and go as close to that as possible. So with a deep breath, just breathe. We're gonna go with the chop, and I do both my sleeves at once so that I get them identical, and I'm heading in on that trajectory. That saves you, like, you know, doing one and then doing the other and going, oh my God, I've made a mistake. And I've got as close to that underarm sleeve as possible. Here I have my two sleeves, and what I might do with these is make a scrunchie later. And here I have my tank top. Yay! Turn your t-shirt into a tank.